What's up folks, welcome to a new video. I watched the ITV debate last night and I was quite impressed with Nigel Farage's performance, and although it was poor quality opponents, he absolutely owned the room. There was almost no other coherent responses from the others apart from Sturgeon, who has a lot of policies that I don't like or agree with, but at least she was clear and decisive about where she stood. We'll start off with Nigel's opening statement.
There's never been a time when confidence in politics, politicians and our institutions has been lower than it is right now today. And that's because 3.5 years ago, all the parties on this platform told you to vote Remain, but you didn't. You said, we want to leave. And 3.5 years on, we find most of the parties here still don't want to honour the vote, want you to vote again. Some even want to revoke Article 50. And the Conservatives have had 3.5 years to sort this out, yet they sought a half-in, half-out fudge. I formed the Brexit Party because I want to get Brexit done properly. I want us to become an independent nation. That is what the vote was for, to leave the institutions of the EU and to be self-governing. Once we've done that, that's just the beginning of a political revolution that needs to happen. The Brexit Party are the new radicals. We've got to reform our rotten institutions, the House of Lords, our voting system, corruption with postal voting. Let's get back to being a proper, functioning democracy.
I couldn't agree more with his opening line there. There is absolutely no trust in politics, and in particular this current set of politicians. He took a shot at all the Remain parties, of course, but didn't forget about the Tories' complete incompetence to have us in this position after almost 4 years since we voted to leave. And even then, we've just ended up with May's withdrawal agreement with a few sodding bells and whistles attached to it. Nigel said that he wants to get Brexit done properly, and the more I think about that line, the more powerful it is. It's probably should have been his slogan from the start of this campaign, if I'm honest. I like his talk of a political revolution. We've got a chance to change things in the current political climate in this country. I'd probably be up for abolishing the House of Lords. And when he talks about reforms to the voting system, I'm hoping he means proportional representation. We need to break the two-party system in this country. We shouldn't have to vote for who's the shinier fucking turd. Proportional representation would give voters a real choice. But anyway, on to the debate. The first question I wanted to go over is this bloke's about the London Bridge attacker.
How is it that a convicted terrorist has been let out after serving only half of their sentence to wreak the havoc that occurred in London on Friday afternoon?
Reasonable question. As usual with politicians, they offered their deepest condolences and they praised the emergency services, but absolutely nobody offered any solutions, of course. Rishi Sunak mentioned that Boris had recently said they were going to get tougher with sentences, but they've had almost 10 years and 3 different governments to do this, to toughen the sentencing laws in our country. Why have they not done them? Why would we trust them now? Here's Nigel's response anyway.
We all express our condolences, but nobody apologises. Apologises for the fact the Liberal elite have given us a ridiculous sentencing system. I don't care whether these people were in jail for 6 years or 12 years. If you have committed mass murder, or plan to commit mass murder, you're not just an ordinary criminal, you've got the virus of jihadism. And I think these people, Darren, should never, ever be let out of prison unless we're absolutely convinced they do not have the jihadi virus. But of course, political correctness stops us from doing this.
So the Conservative government have got this wrong, in your view?
The Conservative government have been very, very weak on sentencing over the last 40 years, just as Labour have been. Anybody else on the platform concerned that there are 74 convicted terrorists out on our streets and 400
we're all concerned,
or do we just ignore it and pretend it's going to go away? Surely we need... This is not just an ordinary criminal. These people want to destroy our civilization. Surely they should be put in prison for life.
Thank you very much
Silence
indeed.
Is golden.
That silence was telling though, wasn't it? He's right. Why should anybody who commits mass murder or even plans to commit mass murder be allowed out again? That's not a personal grudge against a single person. That's genocide, basically. They do not care who dies. They just want to destroy our civilization and everybody in it. I do love the jihadism is a virus line by Nigel. I'm not sure that one would have been aired by the BBC. But anyway, on we go to the second question, which I think is key in this general election because it relates to Brexit.
Can you honestly say, and I do emphasise the word honestly, that your Brexit policy and your leadership will bring this deeply divided nation and, moreover, this deeply divided union back together again?
Nigel Farage.
Well, Sian, you beautifully illustrate why there's division in the country, because the political parties and most of Westminster don't accept the result of the people. Losers' consent is the principle by which civilised democracy works. You fight elections, you lose them, you accept the result. That is how our system works. We have had 3.5 years, and you're still doing it. You don't accept the result, and now you want a second referendum, just to give even more division and acrimony in the country, and I've no doubt that when we vote to leave again by an even bigger margin, you still wouldn't accept it. There's no perfect answer, given where we are, but we have to deliver Brexit. We have to become an independent country, or our democracy in this country is frankly dead.
Spot on, Nigel. This is the overriding theme of this election, really. Do you like democracy? Next question.
As Donald Trump arrives in the UK tomorrow for a NATO summit, should the special relationship become more or less special?
If you want to know what the responses were from everyone else, just go back to the 2016 US election campaign by the Democrats, because that's all they did here. They just slinged some mud. Sunak was a bit more measured in his approach, but here's Nigel's response.
When we talk about the special relationship, we're particularly talking about foreign policy, we're talking about defence, and indeed we're talking about security. And I would argue that the special relationship is more important now than ever, because NATO itself is now directly threatened by a European Union that wants to do defence on its own. You've only got to listen to what President Macron has said over the course of the last few weeks, what Mr Juncker's been saying, Mr Verhofstadt's been saying. The European Defence Union effectively is being set up to replace NATO, and we play a key role in this. Boris Johnson needs to make a big decision in the next few days. Are we staying with the European Defence Union, or are we staying with NATO and America? And I hope we choose the latter.
It's rare that I'm so sycophantic towards Nigel, but hell yes again. I'm an Americanophile. They are our cousins across the pond. We share so many values with them, and our countries massively complement each other. We are the yin and they are the yang in so many areas. Even the personalities of our people, they match, they're quite well suited. In my opinion, there is nothing on earth that these two nations could not achieve if they worked together. But on to question 4, which was sent in. Should we keep our nuclear deterrent, and should we ever use it? Of course, most were in favour of renewing it, except for Price and Sturgeon, who wanted to scrap it, and they said that they would never press the button anyway. But it was Farage's intervention on Bergen, and I wanted to go over. Labour's policy is to keep Trident, but Corbyn said he would never press the button.
I think that politicians should stop boasting about their willingness to kill millions of innocent people just because they think it'll get them a few extra votes.
Well, why waste the money on Trident if you're not prepared to use it? If you're never going to use it, don't waste the money on Trident.
Richard Bergen.
Come on, make your mind up.
Yup. What's the point in shelling out nearly $2 billion a year if you're never going to bloody use it? That's just throwing money into a black hole. You bloody wallies. Another incompetent Labour policy, what a surprise. They're pissing away money before they've even got their hands on it. Either you're prepared to press the button, or you pledge to bloody scrap it. Anything else just makes you look like a thick twat.
I work in the manufacturing industry, and I've listened very carefully to all of your spending plans. Now, what I want to know is who is going to be paying for all these pledges, and who ultimately will be the worse off.
Well, James, you work in manufacturing, and if there is a green jobs revolution, as they all call it, you will lose your job in manufacturing, and perhaps we'll come back to that later on in the programme. Look, I do agree with the point about the regions being left behind. Many parts of the UK feel as though they've been ignored for decades, taken for granted, and the argument for better infrastructure, the argument for access to broadband, even mobile phone connectivity in parts of this country is absolutely overwhelming. The question is, how do we pay for it? Well, Labour clearly are going to borrow vast amounts of money. The Conservatives are going to borrow some. And we suggested cutting things like HS2, which cost £100 billion to benefit just a few thousand. You could help millions with £100 billion.
Christ, I'm going to sound like a Farage fanboy here, but god damn it, yes! HS2 is just another way to cut train times to London. Scrap it now. That 100 billion could be better spent in so many different areas. He also had something to say in response to Sunak as well. I thought he were going to burst a blood vessel waiting for Sunak to finish.
And we stopped this. We had it with Labour governments, we've now got it with Conservative governments, just lying to everybody. You are not cutting the debt. You are cutting the deficit. When you came to power, the national debt was 650 billion. It is now 1.7 trillion. The debt has gone up massively. Well, even more hugely under Labour, I accept that. But please tell people the truth. Our national debt now, the interest payments on it are £40 billion a year and going up.
And this is the problem we've got with nearly all parties at the moment. They've had it so easy for so long that they think they can just spin their lies and get away with it. But we live in a different era now, and they can all be held to account for their nonsense. Anyway, that's it from me today, folks. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and hit that bell button for notifications. Take care, folks.